Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs and today I have this really fun vellum shaker card to share with you. So let's jump right in. So for my shaker card, I wanted to cut down a piece of vellum. So right now it is a 6x6 piece of vellum and I'm going to cut it to be leaving about 1/4 of an inch around each side of my card. So it is going to be an A2 sized card. So I left one side at the 6 inches and then I cut the other side down to be what is it usually 4 1/4, so 4 3/4, because I wanted that 1/4 of an inch to go around. And then we are going to create the background that's going to go inside of the shaker card. So I did want this to be super vibrant, so I'm going to use 2 Distress ink spray stains, which is Salvaged Patina and Picked Raspberry. And then I also brought in a mica spray in Hocus Pocus, which came out in the Halloween mica spray sets. You can't get them anymore. However, any color would look stunning here. It's just that I'm very drawn to pink, purple, and blue, or teal. So that is a color blend I tend to go towards. And I did want to do 2 layers of color again because this is going behind vellum. So I wanted it to be very, very vibrant. So I did end up doing 2 coats and you saw me dry it in between just so that they wouldn't blend anymore. Although I did mist it with water to start with, just to kind of get the colors to move. This doesn't need to be, I would say pretty, although it's pretty because the colors are really stunning. It doesn't need to be perfect because again, we're going to cover it with vellum and you're not going to see the great detail of it as much as you would say if we had done a clear pocket instead. So I was just going for very, very vibrant colors. Now again, these are the colors I prefer. You could use any colors for this. This is just my preference. So, and I like it when the color kind of pools like that. Of course, you don't need to have it do that. You could use a piece of paper towel and clean that up if you don't like it. I like it when color pools. I like the color that it gives and the different shades, but that's totally up to you. And then for my focal that's going to go on top of the card, I brought in the Tim Holtz seasonal sketch die set, which is, it's a poinsettia, or a poinsettia, however you want to say it. And I know that this is not a Christmas card. However, I love Tim Holtz dies, and I want to use my dies because they are not cheap. Dies in Canada, at least, are about $45 a die set for Tim Holtz dies. So they're quite pricey. So I'm going to use the dickens out of them because I've got them and I want to use them for different seasons. So I'm going to. So I am going to use that for this card. And I cut it out of the new Kraft-stock, the new set that Tim Holtz just did. It's the metallic colors set, I believe. Everything I use is linked and listed down below always if you ever have any questions. And then my sentiment is also going to be the Tim Holtz bold text #1 die set because I don't own 2 yet, but I own the first one. So that is the one I'm going to use. And I did do best day ever as my sentiment. And you see that I did cut the kind of fun layer pieces for the poinsettia and the bold sentiment out of some, it says that it's platinum, but honestly to me it looks more like a champagne cards or glitter cardstock. Regardless, I wanted some touches of a very gold-esque color, so that's kind of why I went with this. If you guys have been with me for a while, you know that I have a tendency towards warm tones with my glitters. For whatever reason, I'm really drawn to golds and champagnes and that color. So I did end up using a more champagne-esque glittered cardstock for the detail pieces. And I only put it on the word ever, not best day, just so the ever would stand out more. You absolutely could. Because ever is already bigger, it already draws the focus, so I just gave it more focus to draw. And I am going to use Barely Art Glue. You saw me layer up my ever. I did cut the sentiment 3 times out of some HammerMill cardstock to create my layers. And then for the word ever, it's got an extra layer because it also has that glitter cardstock on top. So it kind of pops itself up again even more because it has slightly more dimension. And then for my seasonal sketch flowers here, I did offset the flowers and the leaves and the kind of detail layer just because I like how that looks. By no means do you need to do that if you don't like that look. I like it. I think it adds more texture and interest, but you do what works for you. This is just a card idea, so you can go and create your version of it. So I'm going to glue them offset. And you saw me put little dabs of glue because I wasn't 100% sure what pieces would touch and which pieces wouldn't. And I put it on my glass mat, so it didn't really matter because the glue would just come off on the glass mat and then I would just wash the mat off. And so I'm going to score my vellum gently here. I have had issues with vellum cracking. So I decided I wanted to score it because I didn't want it to crack when I tried to fold it. And of course, this also gave me more guidelines for my card, well, I guess it's my card panel, my background, for it to fit nicely in there. So I did end up scoring on the same, it's about 1/4 inch, so that I could make sure that I liked it lined up. And I cut off about 1/8 of an inch on each side just to give it a little more room and for some room for the shaker bits to fit. You probably don't need to cut off that much, honestly, but I did just because I was concerned that there would be no space in the shaker pocket that we're creating. And now I'm going to use my hands. I'm not going to reinforce my folds with my bone folder because I think that it will break my vellum. This is a very heavyweight vellum. This is a 40-pound vellum by Bazzill. So if you're not careful with it, it can crack. And I really didn't want it to do that because then all my shaker pieces would fall out. So I am very gently folding it with my hands, slowly trying to work it over. I mean, this looks quick because the footage is sped up, but I did slowly take my time and just work the layer over until I was happy with how it was laying. And then I folded it back over because I want to glue, or I'm going to use Scor-Tape, but I want to adhere all of the sides individually so that the corners kind of layer on top of each other. I did, however, bring in my mini snips and just trim off the bit of the corner that's there as excess. This is not a necessary step, but I kind of like that it kind of gives it a more finished look. And then I did bring in, I believe it's about 1/8 of an inch Scor-Tape to adhere these sides, just because I think Scor-Tape is one of your strongest options and I don't want any of my pieces to fall out. So I'm very particular in what ends up kind of holding it together. This is probably one of the only times I actually use Scor-Tape to adhere anything. As a general rule, I am a liquid glue girl, but for shaker pockets, I always use Scor-Tape just because I think it's way stronger and it just gives me peace of mind with my shaker pieces. And then you're going to see here, I'm going to do each side separately. You can go and put the Scor-Tape down on each side and then kind of go around, but I'm doing this so that it holds each corner down. So you see that I'm running it the whole length of the side, the top to bottom, and then I adhere the side over. So the one that's already adhered on the bottom, now this is going to be adhered all the way along that strip, not just where the strip kind of sits. I hope this makes sense, because otherwise if you do all the layers, your corners aren't going to be sitting on top of each other, if that makes sense. And I really don't want any holes in my corners either, because again, the glitter will fall out. So I'm kind of very specific on how I like to adhere my pocket. And this is the exact same way I make my acetate pockets, or shaker pockets from stamp packaging. I've done that several times. This is the exact same way. This is just vellum instead of acetate or packaging. And it's the exact same way. And then I really wanted to put a couple of different things in here. So I'm going to put some rock candy glitter in just because it's my favorite glitter. It has no static to it, which is amazing. And then some of the older Mica Flakes. Tim Holtz just released new Mica Flakes recently. I don't have any yet, but I want some. And then these really cool gold circles that come from a set of Sizzix. There were the pinks and the red sequins. I got them in a Valentine's Day kit a while ago. But if they're still available, I will absolutely have them linked and listed down below in case you're interested. But they're flat, so they're perfect for this. And it just adds another, again, a little splash of that warmth with that gold color. So I just really like that. And then I am going to adhere down the last side. And I did use my reverse tweezers just to lift the Scor-Tape. It's easier for me. I have long nails. So instead of fighting with Scor-Tape and whatnot, I just bring in my reverse tweezers. And then here you kind of get a look at how this turned out. So I am going to adhere down my sentiment, and it is the best day ever from the bold text #1 Tim Holtz die set. And I did kind of try to use this as a template. The only problem I had that I didn't quite die cut this straight. So I'm using this template, but it's not quite straight. So now, if you wanted it to be a bit wonky, that would absolutely work if you're doing that on purpose. But to have one letter not straight just because it's the template's not quite right doesn't really give you the same effect. So I do end up bringing in my T-square ruler just to kind of help line it up. As a general rule, I like to eyeball things, but for something like this, because it's such a focal, I didn't really want it to be crooked. So I do bring in my T-square ruler just to kind of square up my letters, make sure that they are straight. And I do generally put an acrylic block on top just to make sure that nothing's going to move after I've straightened it. And then for best day, I'm just looking at the template now and kind of seeing like, okay, I know that the T and the top of the V line up, and I know that the E and the B line up, right? So I'm just kind of, now I'm going to eyeball it. Although I do bring in my T-square ruler just to make sure that my letters are all going to line up. But otherwise, I don't really worry about if they're perfectly spaced. Now, again, you could absolutely use a template. The only problem I found with the template, other than it was a bit crooked, was that because I have layered my letters, they don't fit through the holes nicely. So when you try to kind of get that template to sit there, they don't actually fit through the hole. So then you have to fight the hole a bit. So it's a little bit more inconvenient than I was willing to fight with. So I eyeballed it like I do most things. And I think that it turned out really pretty. I like how this card, I'm in love with this card. Majorly in love with this card. I'm not even sure I'm going to give it away. I might just keep it forever because I love it. But I just kind of eyeballed how that went together. And honestly, my letters aren't perfect either. But I don't think you would really be able to tell. So I'm not too concerned about it. And the floral helps as well, right? Like this floral that I'm adding right here, the poinsettia, it really helps because it draws the eye again away from the letters not being perfect. Now, you could not add this floral. This card is stunning by itself. It doesn't even really need the poinsettia. However, I love to use my Tim Holtz dies. So I just really wanted to add this in. So I kind of tucked the two sets of leaves behind my floral part, and then I'm going to lift my floral up with a couple of thin 3D foam squares and just kind of on the bigger pieces of the flower. Now, it doesn't give it a lot of dimension, but it adds enough that it gives you some extra interest. And I do kind of have it overlap the B a little bit as well. And then now I used a 1-inch Scor-Tape so that I can adhere this down to my card base. This is because, again, because the vellum adds a bit of thickness on the edges, this just makes sure that that card's not going anywhere. However, be careful laying it down because you have no wiggle time, right? Like I love liquid glue because it gives me a chance to make sure I'm going to adhere something properly. This does not give you that. Once it's down, you're done. Like if you didn't like it, that's too bad. And so it's just going to be what it is. And then I did, of course, have to add one large gem to the center of my poinsettia just because I like shiny things. No real reason for anything else. There's a lot going on in this card. And then I'm going to hold it up so you guys can enjoy it in all of its glory. I did adhere those pieces I trimmed off into the center of the card base just because I can, or inside of the card base. And I'm pretty in love. I'm going to shake it here so you guys can hear it. Isn't that fun? I'm in love with this card. It's so fun. I hope you guys will give it a shot. The vellum just adds a really cool interest. So that is the card I have for you guys today. Make sure you check back if you entered into my giveaway on tomorrow, Tuesday, to see if you are the winner. And I will see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye for now.